Hey everyone, it's Claire. Welcome to the Social Distance Podcast. This week we talk about classical education from our perspective, so keep listening to hear more about the unique way that we have been educated. Also make sure to follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Anchor. We have an Instagram and Twitter as well, so you can follow us there to hear more from us daily. Thank you so much for listening today, and we hope you enjoy this conversation. Welcome to Social Distance. This is episode 5. Today we're going to talk about something that is a really big part of our life and is actually the reason that all of us know each other, but is not something we usually get the opportunity to talk about. And that is our education. We have been classically educated, all of us for a different number of years, but for all of us, it's been all of high school. So that's kind of the main, where most of our work together has been. And I feel like it's where the most personally I've grown is in high school through classical education. So we're going to talk about that a little bit today. Everyone else say hi, though. You're here.
Hi, friends.
What's up, guys?
Yeah.
For life.
Yeah. 4-pack is back at it again.
Off to an
Episode
awkward
5.
start.
We're excited.
Always.
Only because you
So-
said it, Luke.
That's
Yeah,
true,
right.
right? I should
It's
take
only
full
awkward if
advice.
you make it awkward.
Yep. Only
I
weird
guess-
if you make it weird.
I will
Accurate.
start by saying that I have been classically educated all of my life. I went to a classical school until I was in 5th grade. I guess 5th grade was the year that I went to classical conversations, the year I met Evan. And then I've done all of high school through CC, and I met Aaliyah in like 8th grade, right? And then Luke, freshman year. We were in class
Sophomore.
Sophomore year, right? Okay.
It's only been 3 years, but it seems like forever.
Feels like a lifetime.
That's what I always say.
Yep. Too long, man. Evan, you should go next because you're the. Actually,
Yeah.
no, you should have gone first because you're the.
I should have gone
You're
first. I'm the
most-
OG.
Most pro.
I didn't do well. Technically, if the topic is classical education, you have done it longer than me because I went to private school from 1st to 3rd grade, and that was it wasn't even technically 3rd grade. That is a story for another time. But then at 4th grade, I went to classical conversations, and then 5th grade, Claire joined, and then, well, Claire already explained it. But
Yeah, let's all go through
Yeah.
who joined
And then
when.
Our history
And
of
then-
This
education.
person
8th
joined,
grade.
And then 1 year later, this person
Yeah.
joined.
Yeah.
And also, this is homeschool, by the way. We are homeschooled students.
We are.
Classical conversations is what you would call a co-op. They call it what do they call it? Like a community. But really,
Community
for us at this
operation.
point, it's all of our school, and it's basically like our whole curriculum, our whole school. We just don't have any of the fun parts of school. So
Pretty much. It's there are
Yep.
drawbacks.
Mhm.
Well,
Luke, how long have you been classically educated?
Well, I have been classically educated since the wee age of 8. I think it was 3rd grade. I started this amazing journey called CC, which has led me down the path to not enlightenment, but at least I don't know, betterment. Not actually.
Sure.
I don't know. I don't know. My family in the past year has developed some reservations about our curriculum, and it's kind of interesting. Again, a story for
Ooh.
another time. No, I'll share this with you guys sometime. It's actually really interesting.
Not enlightenment, but at least betterment. I think
Yes.
that's a
probably
quote
not-
we can say for
probably
later.
Not even that. Are we kidding?
I mean,
I didn't realize we would be on here today to spill tea about classical philosophy, but here we are.
Well,
Here we are.
isn't it? Guys, I have so much tea on my sheet. If you're watching on the stream right now, shameless plug for the stream, you can see my sheet So, I don't know. You want the behind the scenes clips? Go to the YouTube Social Distance Podcast. Anyways, back to our regular scheduled programming.
So,
Leah, how long have you been homeschooled / classically educated?
oh, I forgot about me. I have been homeschooled my whole life. I did little bits of CC Foundations, which is like the memory work throughout early elementary school, but then I didn't actually start at CC until 8th grade. So yeah, that's how long I've been doing like full time all my school at CC.
I think we mentioned this, but CC is Classical Conversations.
We did, yeah.
Uninitiated.
In case you didn't connect the acronym to the name.
Right. And I think it is important to like mention we go 1 full day a week. Well, obviously we don't right now because it's Rona time, but we go 1 full day a week and are taught in a classroom setting by someone other than our mom. And we'll get into more of what that looks like as we progress. But basically, I'm going to be playing the part of an interested young mom. A young mom who is interested in classical education. That's kind of what I was thinking when I was...
Okay.
Yeah, because I get grilled a lot by those. Gotta be honest with you. So yeah, we thought that a good way to explore this topic and to let you guys know what it's been like to grow up as a classical student, the different ways that we've learned to learn, if you will. And yeah, the pros and the cons, as Luke is apparently going to going to share with us.
I have a whole sheet. Okay, and
also we'll try to make this helpful from the perspective of teenagers, because even though Leah will be coming at it from the point of view of like a young mom or someone who's going to educate their own kids, I feel like we all would love to like explain more to people our age what it's like, because that's always something that comes up. So we'll be kind of hopefully like coming at it with the perspective of our friends who might not understand what we do. We'll be explaining it that way, and it for some parts as well.
Right. I didn't literally mean that. I just meant kind of like, I feel like those questions will be most helpful. Okay. Yes. May I begin?
You may, but in just 1 minute. After this word from our sponsor. We'll be right back. And we're back. Okay, Aaliyah. Sorry I kind of butted in there. Continue.
No, it's totally fine. I'm off my A game.
Okay.
Okay, so my first question is, what makes classical education different from a traditional education?
Okay. I think
I got this first. One, guys.
Okay, you got it? You got it, Claire? Go.
Yes.
Do it.
So I am not an expert because I'm just kind of the one who has been forced to do this, but from what I've picked up along the way and from what I've learned, classical education is very systematic in the way that it goes from all of the childhood work that you do is built upon later in your high school and middle school years to become this complete cycle. But it comes in 3 parts, which they call the trivium, which we don't really talk a lot about in the middle of doing education like this, but it's really applicable to everything we do. And that is grammar, logic, and rhetoric are the 3 in the trivium. And so grammar, just like to very quickly summarize, grammar is all of the facts that you learn, and basically from all of elementary school basically is just learning different facts, not necessarily understanding everything, but just memorizing everything. And it's this big cycle that you do. And then the logic cycle is middle school and some of high school, and that's where you tend to do a lot of organizing of these thoughts. You start to get into more what these things mean. So like, for example, you learned a lot of Latin endings and verbs and things. You just memorize them without knowing what was going on. And then later in middle school and high school, you actually learn what they mean and start to use them. And then the rhetoric stage, which is the third one, is where a person will take all of the things they've learned and all of the internalized like comparison and organization that they've done, and they express it to other people. So it's, you learn to write, you do a lot of speeches, lots of different ways, because I think it's kind of intuitive, but it makes a lot of sense that the more you teach something to someone else, the better you will understand it yourself.
Right.
So the end goal for all of it is to be the kind of person who can speak clearly and communicate well and address any problem in that same way of like learning the pieces and then organizing it and then getting to a point where you are enough of an expert to express to other people. So we are almost at the end of that. I still feel like there's no way, like, it seems less idealistic when you're in it, but I have seen a lot of the stages in my own life for sure, like the ways I've been able to address new problems and things in that way. So that's kind of what it is. Maybe other people can speak to how that's different than other models or more about that.
Yeah, I suppose I should have maybe just started with what is classical education, but yeah, maybe one of you guys can pick it up and kind of contrast that with traditional education. I suppose it's not guaranteed that any one of us here can actually talk, like confidently talk about the theory of traditional education, but if you have something to say.
So obviously I know people who go to normal school, and the biggest thing they say about it, and kind of the biggest deal, one of the biggest deals they're having with this kind of corona transition to being homeschooled sort of, is that they can't see the people, and they feel like there's nobody around them. And contrasting that to the public education with what we do, it is a lot of time on your own by yourself. And so if a public school is you're being with 1,000 people every day, 8 hours a day, not necessarily constantly with 1,000 people, but at least around 1,000 people, the type of idea. We're basically by ourselves, either with our families, at a coffee shop, or in our room doing work for 8 hours a day, every day. Not every day.
But would you say that that's specific to classical education or being homeschooled?
Yeah, that's less of a like philosophy difference than just homeschool versus.
Yep, I'm getting to the philosophy part, guys.
Okay.
I'm just establishing our bases.
Okay.
So
sounds good.
Yep. Okay. So now we've established that. The idea behind public school, as I understand it, is there's a lot. It's how should I say this? It's very teacher driven. Like, you will have the students who have the desire to learn and the desire to get better, but there's a lot of people who don't have that, and those are oftentimes the teachers either get on the most or kind of ignore and move on to the people who actually care. So, expounding a little bit, let's say I am really, really good at math, and there's another person who isn't good at math. So, depending on the teacher, some might encourage, just kind of leave the struggling student and try to boost the person who's already really good, and others will try to pick up the struggling student and just let the other student kind of excel. And there are those that will go in between both. But with homeschooling or classical education specifically, it is extremely college format-esque. So what I mean is we have our courses that we have to go in to do. We have our classes, our lectures, whatever you want to call it. We go in, get our assignments, turn stuff in, discuss, get a air quotes short lesson, and then go back, look at our syllabus, look at our assignments, complete those on our own time. So it's a good format. I like the format personally, but if you're that person that can't find the internal desire, the internal drive, it can be very hard to get motivated to do your work. Because oftentimes part of the appeal of classical education or homeschooling in general is for the parent to have complete control over the education. But specifically with us, our curriculum has been designed to kind of phase the parents out as we get older. So we're essentially at this point, end of senior year, working on our own. We're by ourselves. We have to find our own drive and motivation, which #senior slide is really hard.
Mm-hmm.
And also, along with that, even the teachers in the class it's designed for them to lead the class less and less. So at this point, our class is like leading the actual discussion and the different subjects, or half of the different subjects. So half of the day is led by the students.
I'd say
Mm-hmm.
more than half, honestly, because our teacher only leads like our science strand and our Latin strand, which is only two hours. So, and then everything else is us. So it's pretty much all student led, honestly.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Last year it was
this
more half.
clarification though. Homeschool and classical education usually don't even cross paths in a lot of
Right.
ways, and
Yes.
it's very rare for us. We're a very specific set that has been able to do both. So there
I
are a
don't know
lot
if I
of
made that
classical
clear enough.
schools around the nation where it's just a normal school setup, but their curriculum is totally classical and they're based on that trivium that I was talking about earlier. And then there are a lot of homeschools that actually do classes very similar to a public school. And so there's a difference in philosophy between regular homeschool and public school, but it's a different philosophy than what classical school would look like compared to regular. So if that's coming across in the discussion that we're like equating the two things, it's because for us they are the same, homeschool and
Yeah.
classical.
Exactly. Yes.
But for many of my friends, like their classes are going to be very similar to what it's like in a public school, but they're just at home and they have to be motivated by themselves, and they don't have necessarily like the teacher leadership expert at the head of the class.
Yeah.
So there's good and bad for all of that, obviously, but I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't touch on it enough.
I would say, just really quickly, I would say that the biggest difference between traditional education and classical education is teaching you the way to think, the way that you are taught to think, I should say. Classical education is just so rooted in teaching you to think critically, be a problem solver, think logically, and then be able to be an effective leader, an effective rhetorician. Whereas typically traditional school is based around memorization of knowledge and the ability to do really specific skills rather than build foundations that can then be built on in order to learn those skills. That's my best perception. And we're not saying that one is better than the other necessarily. But the way that our minds work, we've found that to be immensely helpful, to be taught how to think in a way that can then allow us to move forward, memorize knowledge better, and problem solve.
Yeah, and I will say that
I
the public
kind of
school
think I have to
system-
disagree with that.
Oh, go for it. Disagree.
I don't want to sound like pretentious when I say this by saying that I think the classical method is better, but like just in countries where the government is in control of what the students learn and they do it in the way that America's doing it right now, you have these people who grow up to just not question authority and not think for themselves. And it causes lots of problems. Hitler even addressed that multiple times, I think. Like he said, whoever controls the school books controls the country.
The hand that rocks the cradle rules the world.
Yeah. So
Long
I think
pause.
it's
So at a certain level, yes, we are kind of asserting that it's better because we've chosen, or because our families have chosen to do this. But I will say there are a lot of people who the way that they think and the way that they work is really suited towards a public education, and
Right.
also they've already been able, like, there's other outlets for them to have independent thought, and they're in general the type of person who's more curious and creative on their own. That they're like, we're not saying that everyone who goes to a public school is indoctrinated and we're the only free thinkers.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
That's not what
Yeah.
I'm saying at all, but
No.
I think on average it would be, I don't even know exactly what I'm trying to say, but like
Just
learning
you're
how
saying
to
just based
think
off of the
instead
skill of
what
critical
to think.
thinking.
Yes. Learning how to think instead of what to think is vastly more beneficial for everyone involved.
I definitely
Sure.
agree with
Yeah.
that.
And it doesn't
okay.
even really matter if you are a more independent thinker regardless, because there are certainly a lot of more independent thinkers that choose classical education for that reason.
Yeah.
So
Right.
That's true, yeah.
there are independent thinkers on both sides of it.
Right.
Exactly.
And
Well,
if you
there's-
have the skill of how to question authority and how to think for yourselves, that's going to give life than just, well, I feel like it'll be more beneficial in the long run.
Yeah.
Okay, are we ready for the next question?
Actually, what we are ready for is another ad break. We'll be back right
Yay!
after this word from our sponsor. And welcome back. Okay, Aaliyah, facilitate for us.
I would be happy to. All right, so my next question for the 4-pack is, what is the most valuable thing you think that you've gained through classical education, classical conversations, whether that be a skill, a certain way of thinking, maybe an appreciation for a certain subject or piece of literature, whatever it might be. What do you think was the most valuable thing you've gained in the sense that you will use it later in life?
Evan, do you want to go? I've kind of been talking a lot.
Sure. I would say, right off the top of my head, the thing that I have enjoyed at least this year the most, is the theology. Because so the books that we've gone through this year are C.S. Lewis, Mere Christianity, and then Ravi Zacharias, Jesus Among Other Gods.
And also the Bible.
Right.
Did do an Old Testament survey.
We did an Old Testament survey for first semester. And I think more specifically with this semester, the 2 books that we've gone through, it's really nice to be able to hear Ravi Zacharias is, I would say, more of an apologist. Is that the word? Apologist? Apologetic?
Yep, I think it's
Apologist.
He's
Well,
apologist.
He's an apologist. Who is apologetic? Well,
An apologetic apologist. More so than C.S. Lewis was. So it's been really nice to hear his points and his arguments for Christianity, because once we are actually out of our more sheltered, extremely Christian lives, it'll be nice to have the sort of defense that, or at least somewhat of a defense that Lewis and Ravi Zacharias have.
Sure. Thank
I
you.
would say that I would normally be, in whatever schooling I would do, I would be a very curious person no matter what. But I think the opportunity to be classically educated has really helped me to be able to, like, it's given me the opportunity to follow that curiosity a lot more than maybe I would otherwise get to. And I just really appreciate the ways that I've been able to, like, tie all of my favorite subjects together and be able to study things I really like. I think it's just been, like, fun for me, which is kind of dorky, but also it's just really great to be able to read a lot of different books and have like really great discussions with other people, which I don't necessarily see as much coming from another educational model. So that would be my answer.
Sure. Awesome. Thank you.
I think for me, the biggest thing that I have gained from doing this classical model is definitely the ability to think critically and articulate and argue effectively. It's really, I don't know, it's really valuable for me, in my life at least, to just understand how to speak my thoughts, speak my mind, and not to be aggressive, but to crush my opponents in any sort of debate we enter into.
Oh my god.
So that's just the competitiveness in me, okay? It's fine. It's fine. I've come to terms with it. You may have not, but I have. But yeah, I just really enjoy the ability to think and speak well. And I'm glad. And who knows? People listening to this podcast may think I don't think or speak well. Let us know in the comments. But
like anybody's actually gonna be like, I do not think that Luke speaks well. Luke speaketh unwell.
Yeah. Right. But all you Reddit trolls. But yeah, I just really appreciate that, and I enjoy the ability that I think at least has given me to articulate myself.
Sure. Excellent.
I
would say, this is, I think, the briefest way to put this, most concise way, would be just the space that we've been given to wrestle with big ideas. The fact that it's so much more based on reading and note-taking and discussion and wrestling with these big ideas that will serve us well later in life to have a solid opinion on. That's been a real gift to me. I genuinely love, like, all of our rhetorical discussions that we get to have at school. And especially the fact that we're such good friends just makes it a really big blessing in my life. So that would be what I would say.
Never know what came first, if the discussions made us friends or if our friendships made the good discussion.
That's
the question we'll never be able to answer.
That's a secret I'll never tell.
Something we talk about in class is paradoxes. Yeah, that's a paradox.
I think that, yeah, I mean, it probably went both ways.
Honestly.
Yeah, true.
And I would also say that we have lots of friends that, well, not lots, but we have friends that are in other challenge for, let me finish.
We have a regular amount of friends, guys. We have friends.
We have like one each, outside of this.
Outside of this, we have one friend.
And she's our teacher, Miss Virginia.
Shout out to Miss V, our one friend.
Just kidding. She's fantastic, by the way. But I would just say that something we haven't touched on yet is that we do know people, other students, other high school seniors in other Challenge 4 classes across the country. There are communities in lots of cities all across the nation. And we have the unique privilege of being both classmates with and good friends with the kids in our class.
Yeah.
And that really enhances our or has enhanced our educational experience. We also have an incredible teacher. And so that, is just another one of those variables that we can only speak to our experience. But in the specific instance that you have an incredible teacher, a really well-learned teacher who's capable of facilitating really great discussion, and then really amazing classmates who are also good friends and deep thinkers, it just creates an awesome environment for having discussions that build up, inspire, and prepare.
Yeah, I would say it's rare to get all of those things together, and we're very blessed.
It's very rare. Yeah, we're super blessed.
I think that in a lot of parts of the world, people are really excited about like the early stages of classical education, and they kind of like peter out by the end because it's hard to get a lot of momentum with like good teachers and lots of other kids who are willing to put in the work, and it's definitely like not as glamorous as having a homecoming or having the high school experience that everyone else gets. So
right. Which doesn't mean you can't go to homecoming. I've gone. Right. It's great.
Great stories from that night, by the way.
Okay, yeah, that we could tell a story another night, but basically I accidentally got high and it wasn't off of, well, it was off of drugs, but it wasn't off of illegal drugs. It was off of too much cold medication that I accidentally took, but it was a
We
great
live in
night.
Colorado. It's legal. Don't worry
It
about
was
it.
a great night. No, we don't.
I know.
We don't live in Colorado. Yeah, that was junior year. Sophomore year was better, senior year was better experience. Okay. How about this one? What does classical education in high school practically look like? And what I mean is, this is a little bit more of creating a space to talk about what our day-to-day learning looks like. What has our coursework looked like throughout high school? And this is maybe, I feel like I should have asked this one first before asking, what makes classical education different from traditional schooling, because this is where a lot of the differences will come out.
Right.
Someone should just go ahead and drop the 6 strands, right? The 6 subjects.
Yeah.
Strands.
Drop those 6 strands.
I don't have my guide with me right now.
I
I
actually.
know, I feel like I always forget them.
where'd it go?
And
I always forget too, but I have my guide right here.
we'll give it a shot. Yeah.
Guys, I literally have my guide right here. It's fine. Don't worry.
Okay.
Okay, if you're watching on the stream, this is our CC symbol. You can see. It's our.
Your camera's not on.
Yeah, it is.
Your camera
It is.
isn't on. Oh,
Not on
shoot.
Zoom.
Not on Zoom, but on the stream it is. I can't use it for both at the same time.
Oh, I see.
Wow, he's a tech giant.
I am, but okay. See here, really quick. The real cool thing is I overlaid my camera on the stream, so it looks like I have a Zoom camera, but it's actually the stream camera. A little bit of tech.
Shut
tips
that
for you
front
boys.
door.
Okay.
Wow.
Anyways, the 6 strands are our logic strand, our grammar strand, our research strand, our reasoning strand, exposition strand, and debate strand. It's a little weird because oftentimes we'll have like multiple subjects contained within one strand. So
Yeah, those don't ever really apply to anything,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
feel like.
I
so
don't know why they named those what they did, but
It's because CC is CC.
yeah.
But, that's another story for another day. But right now, what we're air quotes studying per strand is logic, pre-calc and calc. For grammar, it's Latin and literature. For research, it's physics. For reasoning, it's theology. For exposition, it's ancient literature. For debate, it's world history.
Mm-hmm.
So if you
So
can't-
those roughly translate to, like, the logic is your math, research is science. They have what's the third one? Whatever's language. We do Latin for that.
yeah, grammar.
And then you have your literature, like your composition English class, and then we have an extra one in there that they call debate, and we are doing our theology for that. Or wait, no, that's reasoning. See,
World
it's all
history.
messed up.
World history.
Yeah, history. Yeah, that's the other normal subject people do, and then we do our theology Bible class as well.
Like we said, the subjects don't conform to the strand. It's kind of weird. I don't like it,
Right.
honestly.
They try to, basically, the idea of the strands is to teach a specific skill rather than a specific subject. So over time, they will plug different subjects into the strands in order to teach a specific skill.
Right.
They're not always the same. So, for example, in 8th grade, we had this really awesome experience of getting to learn science through history. So we would research a new scientist each week and do some different type of presentation on them each week.
Mm-hmm.
And then we did chemistry later in the year. So in that sense, we didn't have a traditional science textbook like we would the next year, but we were still learning
Right.
some basic concepts in a unique way.
Right.
And one of the main things with classical conversations is showing how all of the different strands connect.
Yep. Okay, I do have something to say though. As much as I really do actually enjoy CC, and and there are merits there are downsides to it, and this isn't necessarily just CC. This is kind of classical education in general. Oftentimes, like math won't be pushed enough by the curriculum or by the teachers, so the actual curriculum has us behind like 6 months to a year. And Evan is giving me a confused look on Zoom right now. This is something I've confirmed with a ton of other people, like and some really, really smart people as well, like who've done like research on public school versus classical / homeschool. They're all like, yeah, classical education is too slow on math unless you specifically push it the other ways, because I know a lot of people who are taking Calc B or Calc A right now.
Do you think that that's necessarily bad, considering that classical education focuses so much on the developmental? Do you need to be taking Calc B when you graduate high school?
I would say for specific people, yes. Because for me, what I want to do, I know I would have benefited so much more from pushing in math at a younger age. If you have any sort of aspirations for STEM, I would say classical could be more difficult to achieve that. Wouldn't be bad. You're still getting an excellent education and like a top tier, but at the same time, like maybe we could back off Latin a little bit, and instead of doing like paragraphs and maybe not paragraphs, but multiple paragraphs, maybe only do one paragraph, still get the gist of it, and then save a couple extra hours for math. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would say
Sure.
This is more in the I can testify to this problem as well, because I think
I can agree with this.
It's somewhat an awareness also of like the competitive nature of some people, and their ability in math can really be fueled by a public school environment, and that's one of the easier things to accomplish in a public school environment, I feel like, because it's more like lecture based and you can do lots of testing and things like that for math because it's all the same, and so I think it really becomes more difficult to achieve that through classical education when there's not as much structure. And so that's been like where I've had to really work hard to stay on top of my like where I'm at and everything, is to stay on top of math, because it's harder, like it's more of a disadvantage to do math by yourself. I felt like it's taught me so much more, and I've been able to understand the concepts and how they work together a lot better in math because I've had to work through it myself totally. But I do think it's a disadvantage, and I could have maybe gotten a little farther.
And okay, I will say that the times when I've been in a class with a specific teacher who's teaching math, it has clicked in my head, not kidding, like 15 times faster than it has when I'm doing it by myself. Like maybe not for everything, but for specific things. Because I would say that I have a natural skill for math, but at the same time, it wasn't fostered, it wasn't developed, and I feel a little put off that I'm not necessarily in the best position to go into a career that I would want to go in. And it's frustrating, but at the same time, I just have to accept it, and that might mean not getting into, say, a top-tier college for my first 2 years for my bachelor's or something like that, and I'd have to wait to get like off of college class scores and stuff, and just go to a top tier school for my master's, because with that kind of STEM degree, at least for me, I would be looking at like Stanford or MIT or maybe Harvard for science stuff. Those schools are very competitive, and at least with ACT scores, your math is a massive section. Like that's your second most weighted section, and it's just like if you don't score well on it, your overall score is kind of screwed. So it's just something I've been frustrated with, seeing my actual scores.
So I can definitely relate to this. I took 2 years to complete 1 year of my middle school math, and it put me behind, and it was incredibly frustrating because that developmental foundation had been put there. I just hit a wall, and then throughout the rest of middle school and high school, I've struggled to catch up and stay on top of it. I can totally relate to the whole, it's just difficult when you're not in a classroom being taught it,
Right.
/ you don't have a parent who's constantly available and is able to do it. And I would say we have all been disadvantaged in one way or another from that. It's a lot harder to teach yourself math or to, stay on top of that than it is to read a certain amount of pages from a history textbook or
Right.
a theology book.
And write a summary about it and just
And write a
like
summary about
highlight
it.
what you wrote. It's,
Precisely, because it is so discussion based. So what I would say is that yes, it is a problem, but it is a problem that it's 100% preventable if you get on it early enough. If you can
Yes.
set your child up with a math tutor, if you can get them enrolled in a math class, it's not something that should prevent you from becoming a classical student. It's just a downfall that you need to be aware of if you're going to enroll in classical conversations or a similar program.
Yep.
I would have
Yes.
really appreciated that if I would have had a math tutor
Yep.
that brought me through. I've had to have multiple, well, I had to get one to help me with my ACT, but I will say, even for somebody who was super behind, it's doable. I got a decent score on my ACT math. You just have to get the right resources and the right people in place to help you succeed. But yeah, I can definitely, I'm not trying to diminish what you're saying, Luke, at all. I'm just saying that it's a problem that needs to be anticipated.
Yep.
Yes.
And I will say, for me, I'm thankful that it's not too late for kind of the ACT math, because shout out, I'm still technically a junior, so I have another year to get the scores back, but it's a long, hard road, and I wouldn't want anybody to have to deal with it, because I really wish somebody would, like future Luke or future Emily Remus, my mom, could go back and tell her that
We love Emily, you guys.
we really do. But you need to go back and get Luke a math teacher. Get on him constantly. If you're not, you know you're not able to be there all the time for him because you have a giant family. Get somebody who can help him a lot.
Gigantic.
Well, not as big as some, but still big.
Yeah.
and get somebody who can like be there to help. And
Right.
that's just like you said, Aaliyah, it's just the biggest thing I wish I had. And honestly, I'm
Yeah.
probably gonna find somebody to help me with math, who's like an actual tutor, like this summer, because I need it.
I would
Do
also
we-
say, in other school systems, there's going to be other disadvantages and other people. Like, I think every
Right.
single person is going to come out of school feeling like they didn't have enough time for this one thing, or they didn't.
Right.
I mean, certain types of people, obviously, people who are really self-aware and curious about their education. Because I think both of my parents would say their public school education gave them a great foundation in a lot of things, but they did come out of it with feeling like disadvantaged in other areas, and especially knowing what they know about classical school, they feel really lucky that we get to do this and experience so many things that they didn't get to experience and develop. So
Certainly. Yeah.
that's also a good point to like just to get all sides of this
There's going to be downsides no matter
to
what.
anything, right?
Yeah.
So
All right. One more question, folks.
Okay.
yeah, let's go for it.
How do you think that we kind of have touched on this, but we can just like, I don't know, focus in as a final, I don't even know what I'm trying to say. I'm so tired. Okay, a final point.
Yes.
I don't even know. Okay. What are some of the skills you've developed or ways your mind has been trained to think? So this is talking specifically, how does your brain think differently because you have been trained as a classical student than it would have if you had not been? Or you assume it would have if you had not been.
Mm-hmm.
Evan, do you want to take it? I keep passing this to you, but
Yeah, let's see. I'm trying to think back to how I thought in private school. The thing with that is I was so young that it
You were
probably
thinking
didn't-
pretty stupid anyway.
probably didn't matter how I thought
I'm sorry.
back then compared to now. So yeah, I'm trying to see what I would be like now if I had stuck doing
If
private
you want
school.
more time to think, I can.
If you're ready, you should go, because then
Go
I can
Claire.
have more time
Go
to.
Claire.
Because it's basically going to be the same answer from before, because I feel like it's the only answer I have, because I really enjoy school no matter what. Wherever I would be, I think I would enjoy it. But I think the aspect of my own personal curiosity and imagination and the way I think, it has been really shaped to further pursue the things I'm really interested in. And in general, I feel like my reading comprehension is so well tuned at this point that I can read pretty much anything and understand it, which seems kind of basic, but it's really, really helpful. And also the ability to write anything. Like, I feel like my writing skills have been so fine-tuned over all of the papers I've had to write. I think that's a really great, I think in a way that lends itself to expression through writing. So I think that's been really helpful as well.
To contrast that, Claire, a little bit, and give my own reason. It's interesting because I would say the same thing for myself, but with speaking. Not quite as much with writing. Like, I still am very good at putting words down on paper and crafting that type of thing. But for me, I want to through the air tell a story. Aaliyah, I'm echoing over you. Can you kill that?
I don't know what you're talking about.
You're echoing.
Yeah, I can hear it echoing, but I don't know why.
Okay, it just stopped. So, okay, sorry. But I enjoy just like telling a story like verbally and just like getting people to understand it. I'm not necessarily as big on writing it. Another thing, like I kind of said earlier, something that's been trained differently is that I would not be one to necessarily engage in discussion as much. I would still do it because I did it before I was classically educated, but it's not something I would be as ready to do.
Cool. Evan?
Yeah, I would say it has taught me how to, I guess, hearing your points reminded me of how in private school we didn't do any sort of like composition writing, but as soon as we went to CC, it was like that was almost like the main focus, and it taught me how to be persuasive and how to organize my thoughts more clearly, and like I don't know, how to mainstream my thinking process so that I can think clearly, concisely, quickly, and be able to get my points across in a way that's satisfactory to me and still makes sense.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And also,
it is empowering to be able to do that.
Yeah. Because as Luke says, you can win lots of arguments if you know how to.
Mm-hmm.
And it really teaches how being someone who knows a lot about rhetoric can be a really persuasive person.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly.
So, I mean, that can go, you can use that for good or for bad, but it is a good skill to have.
Yeah.
One thing
I would
about what I was going to say also, or what I said before, that it sounded probably a little bit like prideful that I was saying that I have good reading comprehension and good. I think I wouldn't want to just totally be internalizing that, like thinking I have a good reading comprehension, because that's something that could happen. People will just think that they have good reading comprehension for themselves. But just in my experiences with the college process, especially, and writing a lot of essays and writing a lot of, like, talking with a lot of admissions counselors and things, and like the ACT, I've noticed the ways that my specific education helped me in areas that it wouldn't normally, like I wasn't trained for the ACT. I haven't been educated for the ACT, but the way that reading comprehension really helped me there was a very measurable like way that I could see how it's been really helpful. So
Yeah.
it's not just out of nowhere that I feel like this. I think it was measurable at that point. So
Right. Yeah, and I would use this opportunity as we close out just to point out that classical education, it can't create something that isn't already there. All of us have the capacity to think logically, to wrestle with ideas. It's what our brains were made for. And like Evan already had an incredibly logical mind, and classical education has brought that out in him. Luke is a really talented public speaker. Classical education has fostered that. Claire has always been super curious. She's a really bright reader, a really talented writer. Like, classical education honed in on that and brought that out in her. And so I think that every person has something that they are exceptionally good at, and classical education is going to enhance that skill and prepare you to use it in the real world. So
yes.
thank you so much for listening to episode 5 of the Social Distance Podcast. We hope that you enjoyed it.
Oh my gosh.
Do we have any other?
Do you have a breakup line, Aaliyah?
Yeah, of course I do.
My word.
I would also say, leave us some comments on Instagram or email us about how you feel like education has worked for you and the ways it's helped you or harmed you, your specific way of education. Especially if you go to CC and you're younger or you're in a challenge class across the country, also write to us. Tell us your thoughts about it.
Or if you've graduated from CC or out in the world,
That
because
would
If you are one of those
That would
rare
be-
Challenge 4 grads, please write to us.
we want
Yes.
to know.
we want to know how you're doing.
And also, I'm just going to take a quick minute at the end of the podcast to plug our social medias and stuff. So
Do it.
So we're on Instagram, Twitter. We're not on Facebook yet, but I'm gonna get that set up. What else, Claire? You're a social media expert. What else? Is that all?
That's it for
Okay,
now.
that's it for now. But we're coming to a platform near you. Wait, we should
Yes.
start our own subreddit, guys. We can be
Okay.
Oh my
r/social
gosh.
distance. That's
Evan
something-
will be the president of fresh memes, no stale ones.
Okay, and then make sure you guys are followed on our YouTube, our Spotify, our Apple Podcasts, our Anchor, just any platform you can find us. Just click that little follow and notification bell. It helps us so
for that
much.
tan picture.
Yeah, for that tan picture.
Yes.
It boosts us in whatever platform's algorithm so much. So please give us that follow. Also, another reason you should subscribe to our YouTube is that we are gonna have some exclusive content there. One of the examples of that would be this live stream that we've been doing for this past show. You get to see my colossal tech failure in the middle of this episode. So if you've
Like
noticed,
recorded.
it was going-
arguing.
it was going on for like 20 minutes. So if you guys
And I
want to
was
check
crying.
that
It was so funny.
yeah, if you guys want to check that out, go to the YouTube. It is hilarious. It's about halfway through the podcast.
Cool.
But yeah.
All right, well, because I was facilitating, I didn't have time to write an episode-specific breakup line like I did last time. I was thinking about maybe saying something about how I wrote this 5-paragraph persuasive essay about why we should break up, but whatever. Okay, here it is. You guys ready?
Yep.
Everything's going so great. Let's just end it now so we only have good memories.
This has been Social Distance. Thank you for listening.